What's up everybody on YouTube? AJ Russ back to discuss another video, and today we're going to be recapping and talking about NFL Week 7. Like I said on some of my previous recaps, we're starting to get into the weeks where we can tell who are the frauds, who are true contenders, and what teams will potentially fall off. With it now already being Week 7, NFL season, slow down, man. But before we get into this video, make sure y'all hit the subscribe button and turn on post notifications. Make sure you like the video. I post videos about sports, lifestyle, and pop culture. If you guys are interested in Marvel Spider-Man and PS5 games and stuff of that nature, go check out my newest gameplay walkthrough series. But yeah, with all that being said, let's get into the video. Alright guys, so this game was a game that I fully expected the Jacksonville Jaguars to win on Thursday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints, winning 31-24. Trevor Lawrence was questionable to play, but ultimately he did and played a solid game, had 204 yards, completing 20 of his 29 passing attempts. He also had 59 rushing yards, which is impressive. Saints had an opportunity to tie up the game at the end, but were unable to. Derek Carr, he had a good game statistically, I would say. They threw the ball a lot because he threw for 33 for 55. Having 301 yards and a touchdown and interception. Ultimately to no avail. We know how good the Saints defense is. The Jaguars, like we've projected them to be a better team than last year and they made the playoffs. Feel like they'll win the AFC South. They have their struggles at times, but not really too surprised by this outcome. Next game is a game I was watching with my dad between the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Falcons won that game slightly, 16-13. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that's my dad's favorite team. So it sucks to see them lose like that, especially when they were driving. Had a good possession and then Baker Mayfield threw an interception. Besides that, Baker Mayfield, he has been steady this year, but it wasn't enough against the Falcons on Sunday. Desmond Ridder, he had a few turnovers, but the Falcons were still able to overcome that, winning the game, and he threw for 250 passing yards. But John Robinson really didn't play in this game. He had a few snaps, but they said he was feeling under the weather or something like that. That sucks for me in fantasy wise, so I got cooked in one of my leagues, but it's all good. It was really a defensive slugfest in this game, and the Falcons were able to win. This game is one that we're going to get through very quickly. Justin Fields and Jimmy Garoppolo did not play in this game between the Bears and the Raiders. The Bears won the game 30-12. Both of their backup quarterbacks played. Tyson Bagent for the Bears, he was a D2 quarterback before coming into the NFL, so that's pretty impressive. But besides that, we're not really going to talk about these teams. I mean, we're talking about a 2-5 Bears team and a 3-4 Raiders team. Like, let's be for real, we don't expect nothing from them. Brian Hoyer starting this game through 2 interceptions. Yeah, let's just gonna get through this. Let's get into the next week because, yeah, y'all understand. Here's a game that went down to the very end. A matchup between the Cleveland Browns and the Indianapolis Colts. The Browns were able to win on a last possession touchdown with Kareem Hunt on a 4th and goal. And a lot of people will say that a couple of pass interference calls and defensive mistakes by the Colts led to that opportunity for the Browns to score a touchdown, but that's what happened. And we have to credit the Cleveland Browns defense being so resilient and perseverant. Deshaun Watson got hurt early in the game, and even though he was cleared for concussion protocol, the Browns just stuck with PJ Walker. And we have to have a conversation about Deshaun Watson, not necessarily in terms of him being bad, but was he really worth that contract in the trade and compensation that the Browns gave to the Houston Texans, because he is not playing like it. Everyone expected that 2020 version of Deshaun Watson this year, and we're not getting any of that, and he's been injured some. But the Cleveland Browns defense, we can say that they're one of the best, if not the best in the league. Very impressive. Of course, Myles Garrett, I would say right now, he's a leading candidate for Defensive Player of the Year. And on the other end with the Indianapolis Colts, they're just trying to persevere throughout things. They're 3-4 now. Of course, Anthony Richardson is out for the season, which sucks. But Gardner Minshew, he is definitely a capable backup, but he has his struggles sometimes. They have Jonathan Taylor back, so hopefully he'll be able to hold the fort down, getting his rhythm back in. He had a touchdown, but only had 75 rushing yards. So yeah, but that was a really good game and a fun one to watch. Next game we can talk about is the New York Giants beating the Washington Commanders 14-7. Most people certainly didn't expect this outcome. I'm one of them. But one thing to talk about the Giants is how Tyrod Taylor has been playing good in the absence of Daniel Jones. Now, I'm not going to say anything outlandish saying that Tyrod Taylor should start even when Daniel Jones comes back, but Tyrod Taylor, he's a proven veteran and has been a starter at times in this league and definitely one of the best backups in this league. He had 279 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. Also, Saquon Barkley had a pretty good game, had 21 carries and 77 yards, also adding in a receiving touchdown, and Darren Waller also had 98 receiving yards and a touchdown as well. So maybe this can ignite something in the Giants winning this game. Very low scoring game, but hey, you'll take the wins as it is. The Washington Commanders, I definitely expected them to play better. They are now 3-4. The Giants are now 2-5. Sam Howell, he had, I would say, an up and down game. Had 249 passing yards and interception. But ultimately, when you only score 1 touchdown in the game, that's very reflective of how limited your offense was. And the Giants stepped up in that game. This game, as you can see in the thumbnail, is probably the one that I highlight the most. Everyone was looking forward to this matchup between the Lions and the Ravens. And man, the Ravens stumped the Lions, winning 38-6. It was 28-0 at halftime, I believe. This game was just not even close from the jump, pretty much. And along with that, in my area, in the Houston area, the Ravens and Lions game, that was the one that Cardinals being on national TV. It was so bad that they changed the game to the Buccaneers and the Falcons. So that tells you how bad the game was. Lamar Jackson had a great game overall. Threw for 357 passing yards and 3 touchdowns. I would say one of his best passing performances that we've seen in the NFL. And of course, also we know what he does rushing wise as well. He had a rushing touchdown, and Gus Edwards also had a rushing touchdown. And the team overall looked really good. Also, Mark Andrews had 2 receiving touchdowns. So I definitely feel like the Ravens right now, they're playing really good football. They're not 5-2 overall. Could easily be undefeated. But we have to talk about them for sure being one of the best teams, one of the top 5 teams in the NFL right now. And then for the Lions, man, they definitely laid an egg, but I still think that they're the 3rd best team in the NFC right now. Of course, you can interchange them maybe with the Cowboys, just depending on how they play, because they're also up and down. But Jared Goff had 284 passing yards, but I think that that's just a little stat padded because the game wasn't even close at all throughout the entire matchup. But the Lions, there's still hope on their end. I still think they're the favorites to win the NFC North. But the Ravens, they were definitely a better team. If they can continue to play like this, they could be a real AFC threat to teams like the Chiefs and the Dolphins. I mean, this is another surprising matchup as well. The Patriots beat the Buffalo Bills 29-25. And that's what I'm talking about with the Bills, man. They're very up and down at times. And of course, Josh Allen, we recognize him as being a top 5 quarterback, but sometimes he just does the weirdest things and makes some bonehead decisions, in my opinion. Threw an interception, had 2 touchdowns, 265 yards. I mean, we can go through the stats. He's going to put up the stats, but this is a game that you can't lose. And honestly, they should have lost to the New York Giants in week 6. That was an ugly game too. So they better get their stuff together, because teams like the Dolphins, like I just mentioned, the Ravens, and of course the Chiefs, they're not waiting on the Bills. If anything, they're ready to pass them up. And the Patriots, really, this was a much needed win because they've just been playing awful throughout the entire year. A really good game for Matt Jones, completing 25 out of his 30 passing attempts, had 272 passing yards and 2 touchdowns. It's an overall good game for the Patriots, and maybe that'll boost their morale. This next game was nothing too crazy. The Seahawks beat the Cardinals 20-10. Really not too surprised by the outcome. Geno Smith, 219 passing yards, had 2 touchdowns. Kenneth Walker had 105 rushing yards. Really good by them. Talking about the Cardinals real quick, I did see that Kyler Murray is expected to return later in this season. So we'll see how that goes. I've heard people saying that he could get traded in the offseason, but I don't know how that'll work. I guess it just depends on how bad the Cardinals are and if they have the opportunity to draft Caleb Williams, because I'm sure they probably would. I don't know, because Kyler is 5'9", and Caleb Williams, he has the potential to be a generational type of quarterback. Only time will tell with that. And for the Seahawks, I think they don't make the playoffs. Of course, they're in that same division with the 49ers and the Rams, so that's going to be tough, but just like how they made it last year, it's definitely possible for them too as well this year. The Pittsburgh Steelers were able to beat the Los Angeles Rams 24-17 in Los Angeles. The Steelers now have a 4-2 record and now are 2nd in the AFC North, playing really good football. Of course, everybody was calling for Matt Canada to get fired as offensive coordinator, and I'm sure there's a lot of Steelers fans that feel that same way, but at least their offense looked a little bit more promising. Najee Harris was able to get a touchdown. I know he's been struggling throughout this year. Also, Kenny Pickett, he was able to complete 17 out of his 25 passing attempts for 230 yards. Defensively, though, the Steelers, that's what carries them, and TJ Watt was able to have an interception. He even jumped a route, looking really good. We know how great of an athlete he is, being arguably the best defensive player in the league. Of course, you have to mention people like Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, and of course Micah Parsons, but TJ Watt, he is definitely him. And on the other end with the Los Angeles Rams, we saw Cooper Kupp get absolutely clamped. He only had 29 receiving yards, and of course I believe this is his 3rd game back, but that's very interesting. They were able to clamp up a Triple Crown winner in 2021. And Puka Nacua, he went off, I would say for sure. He had 154 receiving yards. It's really impressive how Puka has been playing throughout this year in his rookie season with Matthew Stafford, having that connection. But yeah, like I said a second ago, the Rams, they definitely still have an opportunity and chance to make the playoffs in the NFC. And for the Steelers, they're looking really good. With Mike Tomlin, anything is possible with them, and they're always going to be competitive. Now, this game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Los Angeles Chargers was one that a lot of people were looking forward to. But with how the Chargers have been so up and down and losing games by inches, I really didn't see them realistically winning this game. Of course, the Chiefs did, winning 31-17. And it's crazy because Patrick Mahomes had freaking 321 passing yards in the first half. I mean, they were just dominating, clicking on cylinders with Travis Kelce, who added in 179 receiving yards and a touchdown, had 12 receptions. I mean, that Chargers defense is very, very suspect. There's just no other way to put it. Justin Herbert on the other end for the Chargers, he had 2 interceptions, just really struggling. And of course, he has that finger injury on his left hand that's definitely bothering him. But I don't know. I feel like if the Chargers continue continue to slip, Brandon Staley is for sure going to get fired. A lot of people wanted him to get fired after losing that playoff game against Jacksonville last year, and how they're trending right now, it's not looking good. And for the Chiefs though, of course we know how great they are, and we can't take them for granted, man. Patrick Mahomes, he's for sure climbing his way up as being one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, really trying to be the GOAT potentially, and they have a chance to win another championship and defend their title, of course being 6-1 now. See, with all the good matchups in the NFL, there's some stinkers, and of course we had one that I talked about with the Raiders and Bears. Well, this is another one between the Packers and the Broncos. Packers lost the game to the Broncos, losing 19-17. I feel bad for my boy Ed, my roommate. He's a Packers fan, but man, it's looking tough. I mean, the Broncos, they let 70 points get hung on them by the Dolphins, but still, that's still embarrassing to lose to a team like that who has constantly struggled throughout the past couple of years, and especially this season. Jordan Love has been struggling too overall. After having the first good couple of weeks, he's been trending downwards. I believe his QBR is now a 38 overall of a quarterback rating. That's very bad, but I don't know. I still feel like he has a lot of talent. They just got to put it together. This was arguably the game of the week in terms of the stakes, and a lot of people were saying it's a Super Bowl preview for this year, a matchup between the Philadelphia Eagles and the Miami Dolphins, and the Eagles were able to beat the Dolphins, winning 31-17. It was close earlier in the game, but the Eagles, they basically out-physicaled the Dolphins throughout the entire game. Defensively and offensively, they were able to have some good plays to create separation. And it seems like with Tua, of course, we know how great of a season he's having, but sometimes it feels like he's not able to put on that little extra gear that the Dolphins may need. And I mean that in terms of like mobility, being able to make a play when there is not a play there. And of course, we know the type of rapport that he has with his receivers like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. And about this game, Tyreek Hill only had 88 receiving yards, and of course, he had a touchdown in the game too. But I don't know. The Dolphins, they definitely got out physical this game by the Eagles, and the Eagles are showing that they are right where they were last year. They're trying to get back to the Super Bowl. Not only that, but get over the hump and win the Super Bowl. Jalen Hurts had 2 touchdowns, 279 passing yards, completing 23 out of his 31 passes. AJ Brown had a really great, impressive showing. It's his 5th straight game having 125 plus receiving yards, had 137 yards with 10 receptions and a touchdown. And also another huge move for the Philadelphia Eagles. They were able to trade for Kevin Byard from the Tennessee Titans, so that adds another dimension to their defense. So it's just going to be really tough to beat the Eagles in the NFC again. Of course, the 49ers will have something to say about that, but they're looking really good. And despite all the struggles that people said that the Eagles had, and even last week I put in my thumbnail trouble, they're still 6-1. So I think that they'll be cooking like that, and that they're fine having trouble if they're 6-1. Last game for NFL Week 7 took place between the Minnesota Vikings and the San Francisco 49ers. In a surprising turn of this game, Minnesota Vikings won 22-17. And really, if you were watching, it wasn't really that surprising. Of course, a couple of turnovers took place at the beginning of the game, with Jordan Addison getting stripped and then Christian McCaffrey fumbling the ball. But then the Vikings, they really just were on cruise control the whole game. They were able to play the game how they wanted to. The Vikings didn't allow a sack against a dominant 49ers defense, and really, the Vikings held their own and they were able to win the game. Kirk Cousins had an impressive performance. He threw for 378 passing yards, completed 35 out of his 45 passing attempts, had 2 touchdowns, and of course that 1 interception. But they played really good, and then the rookie Jordan Addison, he had a dominant game, had 7 receptions with 123 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. This is a really good overall performance from the Vikings. And on the 49ers, they were just sluggish. Of course, they had people out like Trent Williams on the offensive line. Debo Samuel didn't play. So they definitely played a role, but at the end of the day, they've lost 2 games straight. But I still classify them as being one of the top 2 teams in the NFC. And right now, I would slightly give the edge to the Eagles for sure, because for most of the season, it has been the 49ers on top. But with the Eagles, how they played, and in this loss against the Vikings for the 49ers, I think that the Eagles are a little bit better than them, but I digress. So alright guys, before I close out the video, some things that we learned from this week is that I think the top 5 teams in the league right now in no order consist of the Baltimore Ravens, the San Francisco 49ers, the Miami Dolphins, the Kansas City Chiefs, and of course the Philadelphia Eagles. In no particular order, I can classify that later, but it's for sure those 5 teams. But yeah guys, with that being said, let me know what you think about the season so far in the comments down below, how your favorite team is doing, some of your awards predictions and things of that nature. Let's chat in the comments down below. But I appreciate you guys watching always. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on post notifications. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at SwaggyRuss, and also on TikTok at SwaggyRuss02 for cooking videos, shorts, and things of that nature. More videos are on the way. Hope you all are doing well and being blessed. Always here for y'all. Y'all have a good one.